If the dollar,
Shalom. Hebrews. This is Prophets of Awakening. This is our Tuesday night Tanak and news briefing. 16th of June, 2026. Okay. Our topic for discussion will be the dollar replacement is being launched. Okay. You can go to our YouTube channel, Prophets of Awakening. Check out our videos. We have 1,000 or so videos that you can look at, examine, get the meat out. These videos will lead you to the truth of the Holy Scriptures. And if you like what you're hearing and receiving, I'm asking you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It'd be greatly appreciated. We have our Cash App at the bottom of the screen for those that want to support this channel, help it move along. That too will be greatly appreciated. Okay. For those that don't know, this is a non-Messianic channel. We deal with the Tanak and the Torah. Tanak being the Old Testament, so-called Book of Remembrance, is from Genesis to Malachi. And the Torah is the first 5 books of the Old Testament that was given to Moses by our Savior and our Redeemer and our Deliverer, the Lord of Hosts. Okay. This channel was created to aid and assist all Hebrews who are waking up to their true identity in these last days and also understanding who their Savior and their Redeemer truly is. Shalom and welcome to this channel, and welcome to our Tuesday Tanakh and news briefing. Okay, we're going to do our normal, which is a moment of silence, a prayer, and a psalms. And then, like I said, our topic for discussion will be the dollar replacement is being launched as we speak, right? Then I had another video along with that one is that I thought was pretty interesting is the book of Enoch describes what is beneath the ocean floor. So I'm going to deal with that. Then I'll go into my Tuesday night Tanakh news briefing. Okay, and then we'll pick a scripture at the end, and then we'll have our current events, questions, comments, and dialogue, and then we'll close out. Okay, this moment of silence is for the Lord of Hosts. All that He's doing to bring about our prophesied deliverance in these last days. Oh Lord, we thank you for your great mercy and your great power and your wisdom. And we tarry waiting for your power to deliver to your people Israel. Okay. But Lord, you spoke through your prophet Isaiah and said that you would help Abraham's seed that you have scattered. You have completed that promise as of this day. And you said, oh Lord, that you would remove the darkness from around us. Tarry not, O Lord, the latter days are here, and we are waiting and watching for you. Peace be unto you. Okay. Do the song real quick. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'll read Psalms 5, Psalms 8. It's God's glory and man's honor. Psalm of David. O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is thy name in all the earth. Who has set thy glory above the heavens? Out of the mouth of babes and sucklings have thou ordained strength because of thy enemies. That thou mightest still the enemy and the avenger. When I consider thy heavens, the works of thy fingers, the moon and the stars which thou hast ordained, what is man that thou art mindful of him, and the Son of Man that thou visitest him? For thou hast made him a little lower than the angels, and hast crowned him with glory and honor. Thou madest him to have dominion over the works of thy hands, and thou hast put all things under his feet, all sheep and oxen, yea, and all beasts of the field, fowls of the air, and the fish of the sea, and whatsoever passeth through the paths of the seas. O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is thy name in all the earth. So that was Psalms 8. It's God's glory and man's honor. Okay. So with that being said, we're going to go on to our topic for discussion. Like I said, I got 2 videos and play them. Then we'll talk about them. Then we'll go into our Tuesday night news briefing. Okay, here we go.
lost its place at the center of global trade. your cost of living would never be the same. And right now, Saudi Arabia, the country that helped create the petrodollar, is teaming up with China to launch a direct alternative. Now, the mainstream media doesn't want you to know that once this is live, it could change everything from the value of the dollars in your wallet to the entire global monetary system as we know it. So, what exactly is this new payment system? How is Saudi Arabia involved? How close is it to launching? And what does it mean for the future of the dollar? Well, let's get into it. In case you missed it this week, China tees up digital payment system to compete with the dollar. Beijing's cross-border currency platform will be backed by central banks of Hong Kong, Thailand, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. Now, I, of course, am talking about Project Enbridge, which I've been warning about for the better part of the last 2 years. But before I go into what exactly it is and how close we are to having it launch, we first need a little bit of context around why it's such a big deal. Now, right now, most people out there understand that the dollar is the global reserve currency, right? The dollar is the foundation of the monetary system as we know it today. The majority of foreign exchange reserves, as far as currencies go, are kept in dollars. The majority of trade is done in dollars. And many nations have been seeking alternatives. They're trying to chip away at that dollar dominance for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, the dollar has been weaponized against nations. We could go back to when Russia invaded Ukraine and the US froze and seized US Russia's reserves, right? Everyone else looked around and said, hey, if it can happen to Russia, it can happen to us. The dollar is the US's #1 weapon. It can be used against almost every single person at any time at the blink of an eye. Number two, nations want a seat at the table, right? They want more authority. They want more power. They feel like it hasn't been an equal playing ground. The US really has been able to dictate what happens globally because, again, people are afraid of making Uncle Sam mad and ultimately being on the outs with the dollar. And number three, we all know that inflation is getting worse. Who wants to be handcuffed to a currency that is losing value every second of every day? It doesn't make sense from a business perspective. No, everyone is trying their best to position for a new monetary system. We're seeing alternative payment systems that are getting ready to launch. We'll talk about that in just a second. We're seeing now the biggest supporters of the dollar, whether they want to be or not, right? Saudi Arabia, the petrodollar. When I talk to people about what the dollar is actually backed by, it's not backed by gold, that's for sure, right? It's not backed by gold anymore. What is it backed by? It's backed by oil, right? In the 1970s, when President Nixon delinked the dollar from gold, what happened? They created the petrodollar agreement, okay? It essentially created an indefinite demand for dollars because everyone who needed oil was going to be using dollars. That has been being chipped away at. We now see other currencies being used to purchase oil, especially over the last few years and even more so over the last few months. You now have Saudi Arabia, who historically has always been tied to the US, right, over the last 50 years. Now you see Saudi Arabia moving towards the BRICS nations, particularly China. When we talk about China building their golden corridor, right, a series of physical gold vaults with their partner nations, where are they building one? Inside Saudi Arabia's borders. Why is that? Why would they possibly need a gold vault inside of Saudi Arabia's borders? Well, it's because they can settle in physical gold. So now you have oil, instead of just being priced in dollars and traded in dollars, you have it being priced and traded in other currencies and now physical gold. Okay, now what do you think that's going to do to gold, right? Gold demand, right? What's that going to do to dollar demand? Okay, that's exactly how this is going to work. And we're going to talk about how this impacts you in just a second. But again, this is a big deal. United States. Now, of course, and I'll read this just to be fair. It says the BIS's then general manager, Augustine Carstens, denied that there was any such pressure. And that name might ring a bell for you guys. Of course, he's no longer the GM of the BIS today. But this is the same person who came out and said CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, will give them complete and total control, right? Absolute control. And that they'll now have the technology to enforce that control.
A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control, and also we will have the technology to enforce that. Therefore, the degree of control will be far bigger.
For anyone out there who wasn't scared of CBDCs, right? That is what this payment system is set up for. Not only that, but the future is digital. Okay, remember that quote from Augustine. You know, he's the one who said total control and the technology to enforce it. That is where we are heading as a monetary system.
Okay, you got anything on that? What's that?
Shalom, brother Leonard. We've been seeing signs of this just since BRICS came together, but specifically as of recently, since the Iran war and all that, it's kind of escalated. Them
Right.
trying to drop the dollar.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, so with this play this right here, this is it was kind of interesting to me because I think I read it, then again it didn't register, but check this out. I think this is pretty big.
It's in a cedar box inside the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Aksum, Ethiopia, part of a manuscript collection that has not left that building in over 400 years. It contains chapters from the book of Enoch. Church leaders voted Enoch out of scripture in 364 CE, banned it, buried it, called it dangerous. For 17 centuries, it stayed that way. Then in 1947, 11 copies surfaced in the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran. More copies than were found of Deuteronomy, more than Exodus, more than most books that stayed in the Bible. Scholars who translated the oldest fragments found something no one expected. Enoch describes a prison beneath the ocean floor, not a metaphor, a sealed chamber constructed before the flood, holding beings God chose not to destroy, only to contain. He names what's inside. He describes the door. He records why it cannot be opened until the final judgment. In the next several minutes, you will see what the text says, what modern deep sea research has found in the same location, and why access to the relevant manuscripts has been restricted.
Are you worried that using your home address for business puts your privacy at
1974. If forbidden biblical history fascinates you, hit subscribe. Every week we uncover what was removed from Scripture. But here's what makes this stranger. The passage appears in two places. The first is Enoch chapter 17 through 19, part of the Book of the Watchers. The second is Enoch chapter 69 in the Parables section, fragment 4Q206, stored at the Israel Museum's Shrine of the Book in Jerusalem, contains Aramaic text from chapter 17 dated to around 100 BCE. The Ethiopian Ge'ez manuscript at Aksum contains the complete version of both sections. Dr. Michael Knibb, whose 1978 Oxford translation remains the standard English edition for scholars, identified chapter 17 as containing geographical language inconsistent with symbolic literature. He meant the text uses compass directions, depth measurements, specific terrain features, not the vague spiritual geography of apocalyptic writing. Something more like a survey report, the kind a geologist files after mapping a site. And this is where it gets disturbing. Chapter 17, verse 5, describes Enoch being taken to a place beyond the Great Sea, where the waters above and below converge. The Ge'ez uses Bahi Abi, the Great Sea, not a river, not a lake, an ocean. Verse 7 describes the floor of this place as dark stone, smooth and cold, unlike any stone found on land. Dark, smooth, cold. Enoch is describing basalt, the volcanic rock that forms the ocean floor. He had no way to know the ocean floor is paved in basalt. No ancient human had seen it. The deepest any ancient person could dive was perhaps 100 feet. The ocean floor sits 2 miles down on average and nearly 7 miles deep at its lowest. Yet Enoch describes it accurately. What we're looking at is a 3-part description of what lies beneath. The text begins with the structure. Chapter 18, verse 9 says, Enoch was shown a deep place in the earth, and columns of fire descended into it, and I saw pillars of fire falling downward without end. This is hydrothermal activity, underwater volcanic vents that shoot superheated water into the ocean, some reaching temperatures of 750 degrees Fahrenheit. The ancients called them pillars of fire. We call them black smokers. Same phenomenon, different century. But the text doesn't stop there. What follows in chapter 18, verse 11, is the prison itself. Enoch writes, "And beyond the pillars of fire, I saw a great house built from stones of hail and ice, and it had walls of fire around it, and a door I could not open. A house of ice surrounded by fire, impenetrable." Chapter 19, verse 1 identifies what is inside. The angel Uriel tells Enoch, "Here shall the angels who cohabited with women stand. Their spirits, taking many forms, defile men and lead them astray to offer sacrifices to demons as to gods. These are not the same as the watchers imprisoned beneath the desert. These are different beings. Their spirits, the text says, are still active, still able to influence events on the surface, even while the bodies are sealed below. The prison contains their physical forms. Their influence escapes through the door." What follows in chapter 69 is stranger still. Enoch provides the name of the being who manages the seal. Verse 14 names him as Caspiel, described as the one who revealed the secret oath to the holy Michael. The oath is what keeps the door shut. Chapter 69, verse 15 records the oath itself. The oath Bika, sworn before creation. Before the ocean existed, before the floor was laid, the seal on this prison was agreed upon before the prison was built. It was planned. The containment of whatever lives beneath the ocean floor was not a response to an emergency. It was a design decision. The distinction matters. Enoch describes two separate categories of imprisoned beings. The watchers under the Judean desert are awaiting trial. They are held in temporary detention before sentencing. But the beings beneath the ocean are described differently. Chapter 19, verse 3 adds a detail most Western translations drop entirely. The Ge'ez says their imprisonment is li'alam we'aleim, for ages upon ages. That phrase appears elsewhere in Enoch, only in context describing permanent conditions. Not a holding cell, a permanent installation. Whatever is under the ocean floor was not detained to await judgment. It was removed from the world and sealed away from it indefinitely. What makes this detail unsettling is the reason given. God did not destroy these beings. He could have. The flood destroyed everything on the surface. But these beings were sealed rather than eliminated. Chapter 10, verse 9 records God's instruction, "Destroy all the souls of lust and the children of the watchers." Surface beings, destroyed. But chapter 19 describes a different class of being that receives a different sentence: containment instead of destruction, sealing instead of annihilation. The text implies these beings could not simply be unmade, they had to be held. The architecture Enoch describes is worth slowing down on. He doesn't say a dark place, he gives materials. Chapter 18, verse 9 specifies the walls are made of stones of hail, ice compressed under enormous pressure, white, blue, and translucent. The floor is that dark basalt, smooth and cold to the touch. Fire burns along the perimeter walls, but does not melt the ice. Enoch,
I just found out that if you have two
called the deep sea prison passages irreconcilable with Mosaic cosmology in an 1821 review. R.H. Charles, producing his 1906 English translation, added a footnote suggesting the ocean house of ice was probably a garbled memory of Arctic exploration. No ancient Judean writer had been to the Arctic. Charles had no explanation. He offered one anyway. There is one more layer to the suppression that most researchers miss. When the Dead Sea Scrolls were first cataloged in the early 1950s, the ocean floor chapters of Enoch were assigned to the lowest publication priority. The scholars managing the scroll publication project, a team coordinated by the École Biblique in Jerusalem, divided the fragments into categories. Fragments touching on law, calendar, and community rules were published first. Fragments touching on cosmology, angiology, and geography were placed in the final category. The Enoch fragments describing the ocean prison sat unpublished for over 30 years after their discovery. They finally appeared in 1976, when Joseph Milik released his edition, and even then his commentary described the ocean floor passages as mythological elaborations without geographical content. The man who spent decades studying these texts dismissed the most specific geographical passage in the entire Enochic corpus as content-free mythology. But what the standard translation hides is this. The Aksum manuscript contains a passage in chapter 17 that does not appear in any Western edition. Access to the Aksum manuscripts was restricted after 1974, following the Ethiopian Revolution, when the new government classified church archives as national cultural property. Dr. James Vanderkam of the University of Notre Dame, one of the foremost living authorities on Enoch scholarship, applied for access in 1988, denied. He applied again in 1997, denied. In a 2001 interview with Biblical Archaeology Review, Vanderkam stated that at least 3 passages in the Ge'ez manuscript tradition are known to scholars through secondary references, but have not been available for direct examination in over 50 years. Now here's where it gets active. In 2019, a Norwegian oceanographic research vessel called the Kronprins Haakon, operated by the Institute of Marine Research, conducted a deep-sea survey of a geologically anomalous region in the South Atlantic, approximately 800 miles west of Namibia. The survey detected acoustic signatures at a depth of 4 miles that the ship's instruments could not classify. The lead researcher filed a preliminary report with the Norwegian Research Council describing the signals as inconsistent with known geological or biological sources at that depth. The report was classified as a restricted internal document. A summary was published in 2021 with the acoustic data section redacted.
Okay, so what you done? You ever read that?
Shalom, yes, sir. Some of my translations don't say exactly what he read, but as far as the Enoch 69,
Okay,
where he was talking about the oath in the hand of Michael,
okay,
yes, sir, and then all that stuff was in there. When you read it, kind of pertains to creation. So how you always say there was a spirit of God with the Creator in the beginning.
okay,
Yes, sir.
okay. Yeah, so yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting to do a little more research on it. But so we're gonna go into our Tuesday Tanak and news briefing. And like I said, the objective of this news briefing is to combining the Tanakh, the way it is, with current events and the end times and prophecy. So connecting dots, okay. So with that being said, my first video is, let me play it right quick. Okay.
To experts, they say we could all be without power very soon. Look at this. It says summer hasn't officially begun, but record-breaking heat is already sweeping parts of the country. Well, this is concerning, but this isn't the biggest concern. The biggest concern is that we could be without power, and electric companies are already telling us they are preparing for this very soon. But look at this. It says NERC warns long-term grid reliability risks mounting from surging demand and lagging resources. That's what we learned several months ago. But the concern now is that not only do we have additional demand, but we do have some lagging resources, but now we have the threat of weather. The rising temperatures are a huge concern. I want to play something for you really quick, and then we'll talk about it.
We have big news right now. The rise in data centers across the country is posing a threat to the nation's power grid. That according to a new statement from a grid watchdog. The North American Electric Reliability Corporation, also known as NERC, has now issued a rare Level 3 essential action alert. They're warning that large computational loads associated with data centers pose immediate risks to the bulk power systems across the nation. And
that's concerning, okay? Extremely concerning. I want to read a little of this to you, okay? I just want to show you kind of what we're seeing here, because again, this right here is a huge problem. Okay, first off, let me read it. It says 5 regions to face high risk by 2030. It says, as Mark Olson, NERC's manager of reliability assessment, explained, another key finding in the report is that resource adequacy concerns are mounting, meaning essentially that despite surging demand expectations, projected supply growth is not keeping pace. It says, according to NERC's capacity and energy risk assessment, which identifies potential future electricity supply shortfalls under normal and extreme weather conditions based on bulk power systems planning forecasts, 13 of 23 assessment areas will face resource adequacy challenges over the next 5 years. By 2030, at least 5 regions could face high risk. And this right here, it's the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, or MISO. It's PGM interconnection. It's Electric Reliability Council in Texas, or ERCOT, and the Western Electric Coordinating Council, or WEX, okay, in the Basin Northwest subregions. Those are the ones that are at high risk. I want to show you something though, okay? Look at this right here. I was reading this just the other day. It says blackout risks are rising, while neighboring power grids can't just send extra electricity where it's needed, and it can't. This is a concern. We're even hearing from GM, where General Motors is now they're planning on something where maybe EV drivers can sell their unused electricity back to the power grid. They're only doing that if they see it's a concern. I want to read something else to you though. Look at this right here. It says emergency order issued for Duke Energy to meet unusually high demand amid North Carolina heat wave. This was just published days ago. So Duke Energy, okay, there's an emergency order issued for Duke Energy to meet unusually high demand. The weather, that was the concern. It wasn't just, oh, well, it's just too hot. No, it was the weather. The weather was a huge factor. Now, I want to read a little bit of this, the NERC warning to you, because again, this is something that we're going to see more and more of. But look at this right here. It says a major watchdog says data centers are wreaking havoc on North America's power grid. Okay. It says NERC oversees grid reliability in the U.S., Canada, and parts of Mexico. The agency issued a level 3 alert this week regarding risk posed by data centers. AI training can cause wild power swings, threatening grid stability. But yet, everybody's using AI. Everybody's using artificial intelligence. We're seeing this for individuals, for businesses, for people in school, just everyday people using AI to help them with things like cooking dinner.
Okay, so we see right here these back to the data centers. They got to projected. These data centers, because of the power that they use, going to start causing blackouts. Okay, well, what's your take on that?
Shalom, brother. I can see that too, because they just I even seen that some of the reports, like some of the ones around here, that the data centers would always file for like extra power consumption or something like that, extra power capacity. And just like you saying, the people around that already have data centers, that's what they would complain about, was not having strong enough power and water pressure and things like that. So it's going to be a massive problem, them creating more, like in the video you was playing the other day. They build those other 3,000.
Exactly, and then they saying how that the data centers get priority over the American people. So yeah, check this out. I mean, I don't know if anybody ever heard of this. This is Project Sandman. Check it out. You ever heard of that?
No, sir.
Check it out.
What is Operation Sandman, and is it a coordinated effort between hundreds of countries to collapse the dollar at the same time? Let's break down this theory.
So what he's saying is they got a coordinated effort at a certain time. They're gonna all drop the dollar and collapse the American government. Certain day. Check it out.
what I have found and what we should all do about it. Hey, welcome to the show. Molly here. Today we're going to talk about Operation Sandman, also referred to in some circles as Project Sandman, but same idea. This is a theory, because it's a little difficult to prove, that hundreds of nations have a coordinated plan to basically pull out of the US dollar system at the same time, causing some fairly significant consequences, which we'll talk about today. I actually heard about this, or heard this label months ago, last year when I was doing videos on Project Ion and Project Guardian. I kind of had a whole list of all the like projects or whatever, and was planning to do videos on all of them. And Project Sandman sounded like a neat one, but or at least interesting, not neat in a constructive way, but like fascinating one. However, I had a really hard time finding anything beyond like a couple of tweets. Like there wasn't really any sauce that I felt like confident enough to like do a whole thread on in the video. So fast forward to March 26th, and the president of Kenya showed us this video, or released this video for all of us.
For the people who work numbers, I am giving you free advice that those of you who are holding dollars, you surely might go into losses. You better do what you must do, because this market is going to be different in a couple of weeks.
All right, fast forward a few days, and we started to see some other data points indicating this sort of coordinated effort. For example, China and France have now completed their first yuan-settled natural gas trade, which is a big deal. I mean, it's one thing for kind of Asian countries and African countries to trade with each other, but when you bring in a European country that is very, very entrenched in the dollar system, that is significant. And not only does it indicate the end of the petrodollar agreement, but it could be the end of like the dollar as global reserve currency and even as a payment currency globally. All right, next we're going to talk about an article that I've seen actually printed in a couple places, so I'm not really sure who the original author is. And I don't agree with everything in here, so let's just talk about a few things that we are seeing in some of the press coverage, which I think is creating a fair amount of fear, which is often the case with some of these sort of like New World Order, like the dystopian future, oh my God, the sky is falling type of coverage. And I'm just going to break down a couple of things in here that I don't necessarily agree with. So the idea here is that 100 plus nations have a global agreement now being referred to as Project Sandman. I have seen it referred to as Operation Sandman elsewhere. The intent is to drop the dollar dominance and the petrodollar agreement. It's this article, like, it's a bit dramatic. This is one of my propaganda indicators, is that if media coverage has a lot of inflammatory and emotional language in it, it's generally not how actual journalists write. That is more of a propaganda type thing. So that's why we're kind of looking at this together. When this decision is triggered, the dollar and all dollar-denominated assets will plunge to near zero literally overnight. It's a very dramatic statement, which I don't think an actual journalist would write. But let's just go through this regardless. This means all dollar-denominated bank accounts, bonds, pension funds, treasuries, and other investment vehicles could or will essentially be worth zero for the simple reason that all banks and markets will freeze operations. The other nations would have to get something for what they're selling, and it's not clear like what currency. So how this would play out, I think, is a bit dramatic in some of these articles, but when you kind of break it down, it's not really clear how all these dollars would come home. Now, what would be clear is that right now there's a lot of dollars circulating in the global economy, and if a group of countries decided we're not going to participate in this market anymore, you would have a ton of dollars and not a lot of market participants. So you'd have an oversupply of dollars around. And that's possibly what they mean about this, glut or extra dollars. But how this makes it exactly to your local grocery store where there's just a flood of dollars, I'm not entirely clear. But this has happened in Weimar, Germany, and it's happened in Argentina, Venezuela. Like, we've seen these types of scenarios play out, and they're very scary. Feel what's going on, but you're not, you're not, just you are the observer. That can help with perspective, because there's some predictions that there could be a couple of dark days before we transition to the new money system, and the feeling like your life savings is gone, or your house is worth nothing, or your bank account has nothing in it, and this kind of temporary panic.
Okay, Project Sandman. You got anything on that?
Shalom, brother Leonard. This makes sense though, because it seemed like just with all their actions anyway that we know about, that they've been setting this up, planning for it.
Right, and then you got to look at the way all the nations feel about America and how they feel about Israel. Right. So, so we're gonna keep on going, because I'm going somewhere with this. So now we got this operation, Plunder Boat. You ever heard of that?
No, sir.
Okay, here we go. It's gonna get ugly in a minute.
So how are you watching the Epstein topic unfold around the world? Well,
yeah, this guy right here is a doozy, man. His name is Lumumba Amin. It's LUMUMBAAMIN. Yes, I stumble upon it. Check it out.
For me, the one thing that I noticed is the eerie silence about the fact that it is all a heinous Israeli government coup against the West. As we all know, it is an Israeli operation.
So they got an Israeli operation with the intent to do a coup in America. Keep in mind everything we already looking at happening.
Take over Western governments by entrapping their leaders in depraved sexual acts, catching those sexual acts on video, and then blackmailing the leaders to do anything that Israel demands of them, or else the images would be made public. However, many who are discussing the topic fail to make the connection that today, even after Epstein's death, people are losing their freedoms and their rights in Europe and America today because of him. The increasing Israeli control of Western governments that we are all seeing today, it's Epstein's work. All the genocide denial by the governments of Europe and America, the denial of starvation and the refusal to do anything to stop the genocide. In fact, even sending even more bombs to exterminate the Palestinian people, arresting and deporting peaceful protesters in their own cities. All of this weird behavior is the direct product of Epstein's operation. Western leaders are supporting Israel under duress just so that their sex tapes are not made public. Netanyahu is probably waiting to see what effect the release of the Epstein files is having on Israel's control over America and Europe. Clearly, he is not in any trouble so far, because not only the names of the abusers are still redacted, but also everyone is focusing on everything else but Israel, the country that is the mastermind behind this actual Israeli coup d'etat conducted by one man on an Israeli mission. That's Jeffrey Epstein. If any other country had conducted such an operation against America, you would hear national security alarms everywhere. Diplomatic ties would be cut with that nation, and there would be war plans made and counterintelligence operations being conducted right now for the country, for America, to regain full sovereignty of its government, its institutions, and its democracy. The lukewarm concern shows how much America's national security apparatus has collapsed under Epstein's operation. To all those Americans complaining about a foreign country controlling America, that is exactly what Epstein was doing. Israel's complete takeover of America. Only one country in the world, namely Israel, uses pedophilia and cannibalism of children as a weapon to control foreign countries. American people, you are under attack by Israel. Israel wants your country, and Israel is getting away with conducting a coup against your country and installing an Israeli dictatorship against you, the American people. The only remaining simple solution at your direct disposal, and I will repeat this as many times as it takes, is the people of America kicking out of public office all these politicians whom you found bowing their heads to Israel. All these people being given free trips to Israel. That is a continuation of Israel's takeover of your country. It is the exponential increase of Israeli control over your lives. They already control your economy, your military industrial complex, your Congress, your White House, even your conscience, through lies, fake victimhood, false flag operations, corruption with your politicians, and general deceit. The Epstein operation shows exactly which side of good or evil they're actually on. Cannibalism and sexual deviance on children cannot be the work of angels. It is the lifestyle of the beasts, monsters, and savages known today as Israel. Elections and nationwide public protests are the people's last line of defense to save yourselves and your country from the increasing Israeli lies, deceit, malice, fraud, traps, evil, and the rising Israeli tyranny and capture of your countries. I get nothing from anyone for saying this. I do it out of my own belief that you deserve better than a devious Israeli dictatorship cabal that is secretly siphoning all your tax dollars, your freedoms, your rights, and your jobs, and trampling over your democracy and your sovereignty in your own country. Just a month ago, I said in a public video that I suspect that Israel had the nudes and sex tapes of UAE leaders, and Israel is using these videos to blackmail them into doing whatever Israel wants, including getting involved in civil wars and terrorism in Africa. Today, I saw in the latest Epstein file a photo of one of UAE's leaders on the Epstein Island with two white girls in bikinis in his arms kissing him. That confirmed
Check this out.
My previous suspicion that Israel has blackmailed the UAE with their nudes and sex tapes to do things for Israel, because that is what the Epstein Island was for. Get people there to have some holiday fun, young girls available on site, secretly record the guest doing unholy things, then blackmail the guest with those videos to do anything you want. I now also suspect that the FBI has also been co-opted into Israel's coup as an accomplice against America's democracy. And the FBI could now be trying to use the Epstein material it found to also secretly blackmail the same leaders and individuals in those videos to do whatever they demand of them. I am saying this because Jeffrey Epstein was already found guilty of sex trafficking for Israel's blackmail operation. Epstein's girlfriend was also already found guilty and jailed for the same child sex trafficking in the same Israeli blackmail operation. And the FBI has the Israeli blackmail sex videos where politicians are sexually abusing the children given to them by Epstein, who filmed the abuse for Israel's blackmail operation. Everybody who visited Epstein's island was filmed, including the Gulf leaders. But how come none of these international politicians, especially the American ones, are in jail for child sexual abuse? Yet the traffickers have already been found guilty of providing the victims to the politicians who abuse the children. Is Mr. Kash Patel also trying to use the same sex videos for his own FBI blackmail operation against the same global politicians, even at Trump's behest? Why else would you redact the names of all of the abusers but mention the victims? The rotten FBI wants to blackmail these same global elites as well, using the same Epstein videos where these politicians are sexually abusing toddlers. How is anyone sure that Trump and Patel are not in a blackmail operation? And that is not happening already using the videos collected from Epstein's Island? We call it Epstein Island, but it was just an intelligence asset.
Don't call it Epstein Island. Check it
Set
out.
on duty. In reality, it should be called the Greater Israel Island.
Island.
The Abyss.
Come on.
Actually bought by US taxpayers' money, probably money sent as foreign aid to Israel. And the same source of funds for all the mysterious new Israeli billionaires with no actual business where they made their money from. Meanwhile, the only way out now for the politicians in the Epstein sex tapes is to sue the FBI and Department of Justice for millions of dollars if anyone tries to blackmail them again with the same videos taken by Epstein. But the best thing that the American people could do for the victims is to kick all pro-Israel politicians out of office. Remember that this was an Israeli Ministry of Defense operation. So my appeal also goes to the people of UK, France, Germany, the whole of Europe, and even Australia. Kick out all these unrepentant pro-Israel pedophiles from public office. No wonder they felt no compassion at toddlers starving and being obliterated in Gaza. They are heartless monsters who have already eaten children alive in macabre Epstein rituals. It's in the files. Do you see any of them coming clean to the American, British, French, or European Union people about their evil deeds? No. They are hiding and they will only respond publicly if their names are exposed. So you can't trust them to do what is right. You can't even trust them to serve you, their people, first, and not to serve Israel first. Therefore, all these pro-Israel politicians have to go. even just for their victims' sake, the defenseless innocent children who had nobody to save them from what these beasts were doing to them on episode.
So what do you think? So this Operation Plunderbolt. So the whole time they coming out now, making it look like all of a sudden they merging the militaries, but they've been together all the time. And by the end, it was used. That's what Epstein was doing. The reason why you see all these people doing things like the lady was just saying about this other project, all these nations going to come together. They got a plan at one time. They all going to drop a dollar at the same time. They're being blackmailed. That's why they're doing it. That's why they're going along with it. So Israel got all these people they being blackmailed because they bring them to this island, and then they blackmailing them. They are giving over to these kids, and then they filming it while they interacting with the kids. And so all this time, all the way back, that's what Epstein was doing. It's called Operation Plunderbolt. If you want to go dig into it. I had some more information on there, but I tried to backtrack that video, but I couldn't. But I got enough right here. You got any feedback on that? You heard anything about that?
No, definitely not that name, Brother Leonard. I haven't looked too much into the Epstein files, but yes, sir. But all of what you played makes sense to what I looked up just with them though. Epstein kind of people. So that all made perfect sense because I know that they do that to the celebrities too. So
right. And so another part of it, like I said, I was trying to find the video, but I wrote the information down, but was he's being what's his name? Gates being blackmailed, and the other guy, Bill Gates being blackmailed, and the other guy from Google, I can't think his name, but they being blackmailed for the health data information. They want all the health data information, globally health data information. Okay, so go right back to go back to the data centers. So they want the health data. Keep that in mind. Play this. It's crazy.
Coup in America. We have to liberate America. This is a big issue for the American people, by the way. So listen carefully. As you know, over decades, US congressmen have been entrapped one after the other by Israel to engage in sexual depravity with children as Israel was secretly recording them on camera. And those videos are being used by Israel to blackmail these politicians to do anything Israel demands, or else the videos will be leaked to the public. I believe the same blackmail operation has caught many leaders in the UK and the EU as well. And that's why they all act odd and look soulless when they have to defend.
So that's what this whole thing that came out by Epstein was to put fear on everybody, all the politicians.
Israel's crimes, because they are under duress and can't reveal their plight to anyone. By orchestrating this blackmail operation, Israel conducted what is essentially a coup d'etat against the democracy that US politicians represent. Israeli operatives have thus usurped the American people's sovereignty over their own country by blackmailing these representatives to serve not the interests of the American people, but the interests of a genocidal foreign country first. The politicians are then given their marching orders and talking points by Israeli agents under the Israeli organization called AIPAC. Every congressman or woman has a person they call an AIPAC babysitter who tells that politician whatever Israel wants them to do on any given subject. You could just as well call the babysitter a personal prison guard or a minder, just like in North Korea. One of the most important actions these politicians must take is to always approve US foreign aid to Israel every year without fail. But after the money reaches Israel, part of it is then sent back to America from Israel to be used by AIPAC to buy more US politicians and also fund the election campaigns of the other politicians who are already under Israeli blackmail, so that they continue serving Israel in Congress to vote for more foreign aid to Israel with the politician.
So now he go to the back door, behind the scenes person that's behind the Project 2025. Once you start understanding all this,
that will again receive more kickbacks from. Basically, these politicians are being coerced to engage in a cycle of corruption and money laundering, where they approve funds to Israel while receiving kickbacks from Israel from the same funds that they approve for Israel. These are federal crimes under US law. Now, besides approving money for Israel, they must also defend any action that Israel takes in the Middle East, be it genocide, air attacks on neighboring countries, or forced starvation on Palestinian children. This has been revealed by UK politician Jeremy Corbyn, who refused outright to be part of this scheme. The overthrow of democracy through blackmail should have never been allowed to happen anyway. And all US congressmen who are compromised by this Israeli blackmail coup should actually report themselves to authorities, or else the people and the victims of their sexual depravity should make these politicians face the real risk of being deemed as willing treason collaborators against the people, power that they have stolen from the American people who elected these politicians. The American people should not let this brazen coup d'etat against their country continue. This foreign regime in power in America, behind the curtains, is the one engineering the loss of freedoms of the American people, particularly when it comes to criticism of Israel. People are being cancelled, losing their businesses, and others their jobs, their families, and marriages breaking, their homes breaking, for simply exercising their First Amendment right to speak their conscience.
so like I said, this is behind Project 2025. Now that this all coming out, and now here go a dagger right here. You ever heard of the America First Health Agreement?
No, sir. Heard of that
Okay.
either.
Remember what I just said? They blackmailing all these tech billionaires and all them, trying to get the health information from from over the whole world. They want, that's what the data centers for. They want the health information. Okay, check it out. This is crazy, man. Right under our nose.
The United States has quietly rolled out an America First health agreement that grants it 25 years of monitoring access over African health systems. 8 African governments have already signed.
Africa. Okay, check it out.
Including Nigeria, Rwanda, Uganda, Lesotho, Eswatini, Kenya, Liberia, and Mozambique. Since America cut off funding towards U.S. aid to help Africa, which has already resulted in the deaths of thousands, this agreement immediately raises suspicion on the intent. This agreement includes that African countries get 5 years of U.S. health financing and support, often focused on HIV, tuberculosis, malaria, maternal and child health. In return, giving the U.S. 25 years of access to certain categories of health data, and in some descriptions, pathogen-related data and specimens tied to outbreak detection and pathogens with epidemic potential. From that small bit of information alone, one might conclude that maybe the U.S. is being proactive to stage off another epidemic or pandemic that they are obviously not prepared for, except you have to keep reading. It's the last paragraph in a letter to the American people from the United States Secretary of State, Mark Rubio, that starts sounding suspicious. He says, "We will continue to be the world's health leader and the most generous nation in the world, but we will do so in a way that directly benefits the American people and directly promotes our national interest." Did Rubio not get the memo that the United States consistently had one of the highest COVID-19 mortality rates in the world, ranking among the top 25 countries globally where COVID was deadliest?
in 2020, 2021, and 2022. The United States is actually a world loser in health leadership. And then it gets much worse. Part of the agreement, you find a section on commercial partnerships with private and public U.S. companies who will have access to the health data of these Africans.
Yeah.
Kenya's citizens are the only ones fighting back,
Come on,
but
man.
do the others know their
That's
private
crazy.
information is about to be sold? Do these African nations, especially Nigeria, not remember what happened in Nigeria in 1996 at the hands of the pharmaceutical giant Pfizer? In 1996, Nigeria experienced one of the worst meningitis epidemics in its history, with over 100,000 cases and over 11,000 deaths. It was especially virulent in children. At the same time, Pfizer was trying to launch a new antibiotic drug called Trovin. Early testing on adults had showed some serious side effects of the drug, including liver problems and cartilage abnormalities. After learning of the meningitis epidemic in Nigeria, Pfizer decided to use it as an opportunity to test the efficacy of their new drug in pediatric settings. So they set up a site beside the Doctors Without Borders testing area. In over 2 weeks, selected a
Doctors
sample
Without
of
Borders.
200 children between the ages of
These
3
some
months
wicked-ass
and
people,
18
bro.
years. A month later, 11 of those children that had participated were dead, and numerous parents of the children involved in the trials reported disabilities, including paralysis and liver failure. Parents alleged that they had not been informed of the experimental nature of the trials, many saying that they thought they were receiving the standard medication that was being issued by Doctors Without Borders. An investigation by a panel of experts hired by the Nigerian government found that Pfizer was at fault in the children's deaths and guilty of conducting human trials without informed consent. An out-of-court settlement was reached for allegedly $75 million to Kano State in Nigeria and $175,000 to 4 families of the deceased children in 2009. This is sinister, and the Nigerian government is allowing their citizens' health data to be shared with private and public U.S. companies that could expose them to the same type of risk. Rubio said it plainly. This will benefit Americans directly. What he didn't say plainly was that the cost will be to Africans.
Okay, what you think? Africa First Health Agreement. Need to check that out. Okay.
Yeah, Shalom, brother Leonard. Yeah, that's interesting too.
Oh yeah.
Right there, that's crazy.
Oh yeah. That's what these data centers about. That's one of the reasons they want all the world. What other reason would they want all the world data, health data? To the point where they blackmailing these people to get it. It's crazy, man. Now check this out.
Okay, guys, so while Donald Trump has been distracting people with his UFC fights outside the White House lawn, something kind of snuck by. And I want to give a big shout out to the Cradle here for bringing this to my attention and many others. We cannot forget about what is happening in Gaza. Now, I want to start off by taking you back to something that Caroline Leavitt said 7 months ago when she was questioned about the U.S. military intentions in Gaza. This was the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, and she was holding this press briefing. And this was during that time when they were talking about the Gaza plan. So listen to what she said here. This is very important.
There's been reports in Israeli media that the U.S. is considering building a temporary military base on the Gaza border. Can you confirm these reports? So I had a conversation directly with the reporter who wrote this article, and this article was based on a single piece of paper, an inquiry that somebody in the Department of Navy made about an idea that may happen in the future. And this reporter deemed that as an official plan and ran with the story that the United States is looking into it. I checked with the highest levels of the United States federal government. This is not something the United States is interested in being engaged in. It's not something we are currently involved in right now that we will be funding. And the president has been very clear he doesn't want to see boots on the ground with respect to what's happening in the Middle East. We've made great peace. We've made great progress with the peace plan in Gaza, and we want to continue to see that move forward. But I put a comment in that story for a reason. And sometimes we see reporters take a piece of paper like this and just deem it as official policy. And sometimes that misleads people a little bit.
So Caroline Levitt is a liar here because 7 months ago, she answered that question. The reporter was asking her about the U.S. intention of building a temporary military base and in Gaza. And Caroline Levitt says, well, no, that's not what we're seeking. That's not what the U.S. government is interested in doing. We're not interested in that. Okay. So this is why, again, video lives forever. You can always go back and debunk some of these things that they said, but you can also go back and show that basically they're liars. So she was lying then and she's lying now. Because that brings me to the Gaza plan. First of all, there is no peace in Gaza. Israel is still bombing and killing Palestinians in Gaza as they sleep in their tents. We just saw more video footage of this just yesterday. Israel is still burning down the West Bank. There's no peace and there's no actual peace plan. So when we go back and we revisit this plan that Donald Trump and Jared Kushner came up with, I do want to go ahead and remind you that Jared Kushner started planning this 2 years ago. So pay attention now. They have been waiting to get their hands on Gaza. I don't believe this is something that just came about after October 7th. I think it's something that they've been thinking about for quite some time, just like the island off the coast of Albania. It's something I think that they've been looking for, and I wouldn't be surprised if they haven't been looking at other places as well. So this was already part of the plan. This so-called peace plan, this Gaza real estate that Jared Kushner and Donald Trump have together, they've come up with, this is not just about real estate. And I want to go back to that graphic to point this out to you. So let's go ahead back to when they announced this real estate plan in Gaza.
Envoys to the Middle East are unveiling some of their master plan to rebuild Gaza. Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner says the plans will emulate other newly redeveloped Middle Eastern cities. He showed renderings of what he calls New Gaza and New Rafah, promising to empower Gazans with jobs, training, and services.
Now, what you'll notice here is what corporate media chose to highlight about this plan. And I'm going to show you the things that they left out because that's so important now with the information that came from the cradle. So they are highlighting the housing units, the education centers, the religious centers, vocational centers, and the medical facilities. They're not showing you everything else that was a part of this plan. So in a way, corporate media was doing propaganda for Jared Kushner and the Epstein class to make you believe that they were just going to rebuild Gaza and make it so much better for the Palestinian people and leave out the things that I am going to show you. They were doing the propaganda for the Trump administration.
Kushner says it will all be done in just 2 or 3 years, but humanitarian organization says Gazans need critical aid now. Med Global Executive Director Joe Beliveau is here with more on that. Hi, Joseph. Thanks for coming on. So you say Gazans need short-term life-saving solutions, not grandiose plans. What do you mean by that?
Well, we're hearing lots about this board of peace now, and look, any kind of big picture process like that is going to actually result in some kind of improvement in the peace situation is a good thing, but it feels very, very distant from what my colleagues and the communities that Med Global is assisting in Gaza are experiencing. Has had their home destroyed, and they are also living in tent circumstances. It's wintertime, it's raining frequently, it's flooding into these tents and these areas, it's cold. When I was there a little over 2 months ago, process going on, if that results in something good, then great, but right now there are extreme humanitarian needs still.
Yeah, so you see how he's like, well, if this plan goes forward and there brings about peace, then that'll be a good thing. No, it's not a good thing for the US government and Israel to come in. and just anybody to come in and take over control. So let's get into this plan a little bit more.
And equitable to all people, especially the people of Gaza, then that's a wonderful thing. But right now,
no, it's not a wonderful thing. Do you see how they're misleading people? So look at the graphic that they're showing here, empowering Gazans with jobs, training, and services, and all the money that they're going to invest in Gaza. They leave out one of the most significant things that's a part of this plan. And so corporate media is going along with it. They're feeding into this rhetoric that Donald Trump is doing a good thing here, because look at what they're going to do to rebuild Gaza. They never mention to you that the plan for Israel is that Israel wants to kill as many Palestinians as possible. So all these things that they're building, the majority of that is not going to go to the Palestinian people. They're going to wipe out as many of them as possible. And that this infrastructure that they're building, that will be for the rich and for the Israelis. That's who it will be for. So you see, I'm just trying to show you how corporate media, they participate in this propaganda process by interviewing guys like this one, by making you believe that, yes, look at what they're doing. They told
in this crisis as well. So a return to the basic respect for IHL is what we need right now. In the bigger picture, Board of Peace, if that goes somewhere positive, we're all for it, but we need action and change right now.
Buying into the propaganda that this board was actually there for peace. You see that?
Check it out.
He mentions international law, but he doesn't tell you something else under international law. People are not supposed to be occupied. And if people are occupied, they have a right to resist by force. They have a right to have an armed resistance. So he knows all this about international law, but he doesn't mention that part. I wonder why. This plan.
If you've been thinking about getting Pocket, this is your last chance to save 45.
Here we go.
Is going to be very problematic. If we go back to, I want to show you what they did not show you, right? Let's zoom in here a little bit. So
check it out.
Let's look at this part right here. The American Data Safe Haven. Regional data centers with special US AI regulation protected by the Great Trust and serving Israel and GCC through Abrahamic Infrastructure Corridors fiber. One of the things that they are going to put there, which corporate media so conveniently omitted from the part of the story, is these data centers. Just like they're building data centers here. Look, special US AI regulation. So the US is going to implement a data center also right there in Gaza.
The US.
Also known as a surveillance center. So they will constantly be under surveillance, those who survive. Corporate media just leaves that completely out. There's another part here.
Come on.
The Elon Musk Smart Manufacturing Zone.
Not
Elon Musk Zone. Industrial zones along the Gaza-Israel border, feeding from and to the Abrahamic gateway through the Gaza ring. This is something Elon Musk is going to be in control over. This is all just more control. Now you have other people involved in the control. And don't forget, Elon Musk just became a trillionaire. So people talking about fighting for democracy and protecting democracy, there's no democracy when you have a trillionaire. There is no democracy. That's done. The other part here, which I find interesting, the planned cities. See, they've been trying to push this in the United States too. There's a whole plan for Los Angeles. There's a plan for Boston, for these planned cities, these smart cities. Listen to this. Zero ground construction of 6 to 8 dynamic, modern, and AI-powered smart planned cities on the inner side of the Gaza ring. all services and economy in these cities will be done through an ID-based digital system. So they're also planning to implement digital ID. We talked before about these planned cities and this whole idea that like they really want to control you. It's more control. And they're not just doing it in Gaza. They have plans to do it here too. This is why I say pay attention to what's happening geopolitically, because a lot of times it comes back home.
That's why they merging. Greater Israel.
So that's important. So those are areas of control. And then there's the article that was just dropped by the Cradle. Wait till you see this.
You go to Dagger.
U.S. military begins construction of huge base outside Gaza to oversee Trump's colonization plan. Now we go back to that video of Caroline Leavitt 7 months ago. She said the U.S. government, they had no interest in doing this. So do you see the lies here? And yet here we are. You see, while Donald Trump has everybody distracted with the UFC fights and all the other craziness that he has been doing, this is just sneaking under the radar. You'll see also here, let's go ahead and bring this up. Make this a little bit smaller for you. The U.S. military has begun construction on a huge base on the Gaza envelope to implement Trump's plan to take over the Strip. The U.S. base is being built near the Israeli military base at Reem Settlement.
Side by
It will
side.
function as both the military and civilian headquarters for the organizations and forces arriving in the area to implement the Trump plan. So the U.S. government is building a military base at Gaza, despite what Caroline Leavitt told you. Now let's go back to the legislation that has made its way through Congress. This section where they want to, the NDAA, where they want to merge the US military with Israel's military, sharing surveillance and so much more, intelligence information. And then you see this merger taking place on the ground in real life right now in Gaza. This is why we said that piece of legislation, all this stuff goes together. This was so incredibly dangerous. So it won't be long till now until you start to see other bases pop up around the Middle East, especially since Iran demolished quite a bit. But these bases will be joined with Israel. So it'll be a US-Israeli base. And this is the final stage of colonialism in the world.
Greater Israel.
That's how they're going to accomplish that Greater Israel plan, with the help of the US government. They can't do it alone. This is the part people leave out. People mention that Netanyahu wants to do this and they have a whole plan, but they can't do it militarily alone. That's where the US comes in. So this joining of the US military with Israel's military, bam, there you go. They're going to help them do this. It goes on to say here, in February 2025, Trump proposed the U.S. takeover of Gaza Strip. That plan called for a forced displacement of approximately 2 million Palestinians to neighboring lands and redeveloping the territory as a high-tech business and tourism hub that Trump said would become the Riviera of the Middle East.
Okay, what you think?
Shalom, brother. A lot of it's coming to make sense now. With Gaza, I wasn't too tapped in on what was going on there, but now a lot of this makes sense knowing about Greater Israel and you know, their plans. Yeah, it makes more sense and why they need that area.
All right, and they got the whole everybody else. They steady fumbling with it. But it's steady, while they whole time, they steady bringing it together. So, so like I said before, before November, because of it when the elections come. And that's why they hollering about everything moving at breakneck speed, because they right on top of it. She ain't say they planning to do it. They already building the base. It's a combination of Israel and America. What hell else you need to know? They ain't hiding what they doing. Okay. There it is, right there in our face. So you gonna pick a scripture? You got something?
Shalom. Yes, sir. And Brother Linda, I got a question here about this is Jubilees 12. This is about the language. Yes, sir. Jubilees 12. If I could 24 to 28, Brother Linda. And it says and I shall be a God to thee and thy son and to thy son's son and to all thy seed. Fear not from henceforth and unto all generations of the earth. I am thy God. And the Lord God said, open his mouth and his ears, that he may hear and speak with his mouth, with the language which hath been revealed. For it had been ceased from the mouths of all the children of men from the day of the overthrow of Babel. And I opened his mouth and his ears and his lips, and I began to speak with him in Hebrew, in the tongue of the creation. And he took the books of his fathers, and these were written in Hebrew, and he transcribed them. And he began, and he began from henceforth to study them. And I made known to him that which he could not understand, and he studied them during the 6 rainy months. And it came to pass in the 7th year of the 6th week that he spoke to his father and informed him that he would leave Haran to go to the land of Canaan to see it and return to him. And Torah, his father, said unto him, go in peace and shalom. That was Jubilees chapter 12 and 24 through 29, 28.
So who is he talking to? Who is he done this with?
The Lord of hosts talking to Abraham.
Okay, it's Abraham, right? Exactly. So
yes, sir.
Is there not the same thing gonna happen in Zechariah chapter 11? I mean chapter 9, chapter 3, verse 9, verse 11.
Okay, yes, sir. So that's my question.
Right, same thing.
Okay, the same thing, right?
Right. Did he do the same thing with Joseph, didn't he? On the 70 steps?
Yes, sir. Yes,
right.
Sir.
Came to him at night and taught him all those languages.
Man, come on. So yeah, so and so then, Brother Leonard, I didn't realize that they no one was speaking the Hebrew language until this right here too. So that was something like I think I read this before, but it hit when I read it today.
Right.
That was another thing. So Abraham brought everything back.
Right. So you gotta look at where they was at. They was displaced.
Okay.
It was over in Ur the Chaldean. So the Hebrew language had been compromised.
Right.
Same way we over here now. Look what's going on with us.
Right.
Right.
And so, and my one last question about that, Brother Leonard. So they couldn't call on the Lord of Hosts during that time, then, right? If they couldn't speak the language, right? Okay.
Well, it was a few people knew him. Shem them knew.
Right. Right.
But yeah, pretty much he was pretty much hid.
Wow. Okay. Right. Shalom.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So with that being said, I'll open it up for some Q&A. Any questions, comments, any dialogue? Got anything?
And shalom. Yes. One question. Another question that I have. You were talking the other day. Well, we were talking the other day, Brother Leonard, about the 480. Well, I had asked you about just if there was any significance to Solomon building the temple.
Right.
in the 480th year after they left Egypt,
Okay.
and just that, because Brother Leonard, they always talk about like when they're trying to deal with JC and deal with that time either before Babylon or after, they always say like it's a 500-year period. So that's also my question too. Like, did they try to steal that time period from between then?
What, right, yeah, that's what that is. That's what's in Daniel. That's what I was saying about when it's broken down. Then I mean, you got these Negroes want to go after you show them this. They keep on trying to break. They trying to bring Joe. I mean, try to bring up Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But you know, you got to look at what they did. Once he's shown to you that, you know, I mean, let me get it. Daniel 9:25, where it starts it. They had to find a way to bring him in. After they concocted him at the council this year, they had to come back to our scriptures. They had to bring him in. So they came right here. Daniel 9:25. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince, shall be 7 weeks, 62 weeks. The streets shall be built again, and the wall in troublesome times. And they trying to tell you right here that this Messiah in Daniel 9:25 is Jesus. But that's not him, because we go back and we find out that it's Zerubbabel, ain't none of him. And one of the examples is he goes in link in his prophecy, a commandment gonna come forth, and it's like they in captivity in Babylon. He's saying a commandment gonna come forth for them to go back to Jerusalem. The streets shall be built again, and the wall in troublesome times. So we go right here. I was just reading that this morning, right here. So we go right here, and they got because of what they done, they got these books all scrambled up. So you have to you know, Lord host got to deal with you for one thing, but then you got to be able to rightly divide these books what they done. So we go to two places I got to go to. You go to we got to I'm going to when Nehemiah came back. We're gonna see what Nehemiah said first. Then I'm gonna go to another place. So like I said, they got these books in front of. They put these books in front of. Let me get it. They put these books in before Daniel when they go behind Daniel. Okay, so I'm in Nehemiah, and let's see what's happening. Like I said, there's 3 waves of people came back. So it says right here in the book of Nehemiah, chapter 1 says. So we see right here that Nehemiah in chapter 1, he want to go back to Jerusalem in captivity. And I'm gonna read 10 and 11. It says, now these are the servants and thy people, this Nehemiah praying to the Lord, just like Daniel did, whom thou hast redeemed by thy great power and by thy strong hand. O Lord, I beseech thee, let now thine ear be attentive to thy prayer of thy servant and to the prayer of thy servants who desire to fear thy name and prosper, and pray to thee, thy servant, this day, and grant him mercy. So he said he asked the Lord to give him that the king Artaxerxes grant him mercy, right, in the sight of this man Artaxerxes, for I was the king's cupbearer. So he goes and he asks the king in chapter 2, can he go back to Jerusalem and rebuild Jerusalem, which is the wall, the same wall in Daniel 9:25. So we know that when we go to Ezra in chapter 2, we see that the Messiah in the Messiah in Daniel 9:25 is Zerubbabel. And chapter 2 says, now these are the children of the providence, right? Remember, it's 172 providence. Okay? Now, these are the children of the providence that went up. They went up out of Susan, the providence at Susan, right? That went up out of the captivity of those who had been carried away, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away unto Babylon and came again unto Jerusalem. See that? It's fulfilling Daniel 9:25. And Judah, everyone unto his city. Now here it goes. Which came with Zerubbabel. This is the Messiah. In Daniel 9:25. So we're going to give you the people. Zerubbabel, Joshua, Nehemiah. See that? Sirach, Relam, Mordecai. See that? That's over in the book of Ezra. All these people was in captivity. And Bethshan, Mizpah, the number of the men of the people of Israel. So they all went back. So it had nothing to do with these 500 years they're talking about having to do with no JC. So let me see how he show you how they manipulated. Now go back to Daniel 9, starting at verse 20. And while I was speaking and praying and confessing my sins of my people Israel, presenting my supplication before the Lord my God, for the holy mountain of my God, yea, while I was speaking in prayer. So he praying because they want to go back. Even the man Gabriel, right? The angel Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision in the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of the evening's oblations. And he informed me, and he talked with me, and he said, "Oh, Daniel, I am now come forth to give thee skill and understanding." So he's going to make him understand what Daniel 9:25 is about. Now he told him. Then he started praying in verse 1 of chapter 9. And he says, at the beginning of thy supplication, and at the beginning of your prayer, the commandment came forth. Michael sent him as soon as he started praying. And I am come to show thee, for thou art greatly beloved. Therefore, understand the matter and consider the vision. Now here you go, right here. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon the holy city to finish the transgressions and to make an end of sin and to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and the prophecy and anoint the most holy. So what's 70 weeks, bro?
70 Sabbaths.
No,
70 weeks.
70 weeks. How much that? That's a week of years is 1 year, 6 years, and then a Sabbath year. That's a week of years.
Right.
Okay, so 70 times 7 is what?
You said 70 times 490.
There go your 500 years.
Right.
But you got to go back with they telling you this 500 years is when JC came after this. JC came after when he came right here is when he came. See what I'm saying?
Right.
So they took the 500 years and went forward with it and tell you that's when JC came. It's the 500-year gap. That's what they use for end of Malachi till you get to Matthew. And JC came. That's why they start out. That's why they start right here in Matthew chapter 1. Check it out. Like I said, this is hoodwinking. This is why they start in Matthew right here. It says, this is the book of the generations of Jesus Christ. See that? So when they come to Malachi, after Malachi, they come to JC right here. It's 500 years later, this when they introduce you to JC. But they told you over here, this is him in 925. And I told you it ain't. I'm showing you, it's obvious it ain't none of him. But these nutbuckets keep on to try to quote Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You see that?
Right.
It ain't none of him. The 490 years got to do with this. They wasn't keeping the Sabbath years, so you got to go backwards. So what's the 70? Why they had to go to Babylon for 70 years? You get 70 Sabbaths out of that 490 years. That's why he says when they went to Babylon for the 70 years and when they came out, they brought in, like he said right here, verse 24, 70 weeks are determined upon thy people. 70 weeks because they didn't keep the Sabbath year for 490 years. So 490 years is determined upon them. The 70 weeks, the 70 Sabbaths was determined, was gonna clean it up. So they got to go to captivity to allow the land to rest. So it says, determined upon thy people, the holy city, to finish. See that? When they do these 70 years, it's going to finish the transgressions of what they did with the year release. And to make an end of transgression, to clean up that sin. And to make an end of sin, and to make reconciliation for the iniquity. And look at this, and to bring in everlasting righteousness. As soon as they finish the 70 years, then it brings in, the books is clean. It brings in everlasting righteousness. And that's what we're looking at when Zerubbabel, when Cyrus came out with the commandment. The 70 years is up. And the Israelites came back, went back. It ain't no Jesus. But I'm showing you how they set it up. Right here in between these, after Malachi, they got in between the scriptures. See that? Let me show it to you. You go to Malachi. And then in between the scriptures, they got, then they come to JC. That's the 500. That's the 500 years they're trying to say that in between the Old and the New Testament. They brought in JC. Let me get it because I know it's in here. Yeah, right there. Right after Malachi, between the scriptures. You see that in your book?
Right, yes, sir. And mine
That's
is
the 500 years. That's the 500 years. They went forward with the 500 years, but they're supposed to go backwards. In Daniel 9:25. That's why they chose Daniel 9:25.
Okay.
Okay. So right there, that's 500 lost years. Actually, it's a day with the Lord. Is that something?
Right, yes, sir. The Christian dude called it they say 500 years of silence. Is that what they say?
Right, exactly. Same thing.
Okay.
That's why it's so important to understand. That's why they come with the genealogy of David in verse 1. Chapter 1 of Matthew, they bring in JC right when they start Matthew, when they open. This how they brought. Remember, he told Daniel the book sealed, right?
Right.
The Tanak sealed. But here you go, they open it back up right here with JC, with the New Testament. By telling you that was him over there in Daniel 9:25. Then here you go right here. He is with they open you up with his genealogy. And the crazy part about it is one more thing. We get to 11. Matthew 11, 1 and 11. And Josiah begot Jeconiah and his brethren about the time that they were carried away to Babylon. See that? And after they were brought to Babylon, Jeconiah begot Sethel. Sethel begot Zerubbabel. That's the Messiah in Daniel 9:25. See that?
Right.
Joke, man. And there's some.
It is a joke.
Okay. Anthony, you got a question? You can call 337-802-0889 and we can send you the link if you got a question. If you want to engage. What you think?
Yeah, I didn't understand that question.
What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry, but Leonard, I didn't know if that was a question or not. It said that Anthony. I didn't know who that was.
I don't know. It's just so like I said, the number to you can get the link where you can come in the future is 337-802-0889 and we can engage. There's nobody over here gonna bite. It's all good. So yeah, you got anything else, AJ?
No, sir. I'm good. Shalom.
Right. So with that being said, I'm gonna say shalom, shalom, and another shalom. I see everybody tomorrow. We got our reading through the Tanak. It's at 7 p.m. Central Time to 9. Normally it lasts about 2 hours, so we can engage tomorrow. So with that being said, I'm gonna say shalom, shalom, and another shalom.
Shalom.
I highly recommend that you get this book and you read it because it's a must that you understand who God head is in the order that's in the Old Testament in Tanak, because it's not the same as in the New Testament. And when you read this and you get an understanding, then the scriptures open up and then you begin to understand. So I highly recommend that you get this book. It's the Elohim of Israel, and it's a breakdown on the word Elohim and who the God of Israel is and the Godhead.